It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey, my queens. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, also known as the queen bee of this hive, your psychotherapist, feminist life coach, truth teller, system questioner, and a woman who firmly believes that when women reclaim their voices, entire generations change. If this is your first time here, welcome to the hive. Around here, we challenge patriarchal conditioning, we unpack the psychology behind the messages that women absorb every single day, and we do the deep work of becoming more powerful, more authentic, and a whole lot harder to control. So, grab your coffee, your tea, your protein shake, your emotional support water bottle, whatever fuels your fire, because today we are diving into a topic that has shaped generations of women in ways many of us don't even consciously recognize. Today's episode is called The Legacy of Women's Magazines, Empowerment or Exploitation. And oh, my friends, this one is layered. Because for decades, women's magazines have been in our homes, on our coffee tables, in our doctor's offices, tucked into purses, packed for vacations, and staring at us from grocery store checkout lines. They've told us how to dress, how to date, how to lose weight, how to be more desirable, how to keep a man interested, how to look younger, how to age gracefully, how to be more productive, how to be sexy, how to be confident, how to be feminine, how to be successful, how to be enough. But here's the real question. Were they actually helping women step into their power? Or were they quietly profiting from our insecurities while packaging it as empowerment? Today, we're unpacking all of it. The good, the harmful, the complicated, and most importantly, what it means for women today. To understand where we are now, we need to understand where all of this began. Women's magazines in America date back to the late 18th century. One of the earliest publications designed specifically for women was the Ladies' Magazine, launched in 1792. At that time, women had very few public platforms. Their education was limited. Their political power was almost non-existent. Their economic independence was rare. So when publications began centering women, even within narrow cultural roles, it mattered. These early magazines often focused on literature, poetry, etiquette, household management, fashion, marriage expectations, motherhood, and social class behavior. And while a lot of that content reflected restrictive gender norms, it also gave women something incredibly important: a space, a cultural identity, a sense that their inner worlds, even in limited form, were worth publishing. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, publications like Ladies' Home Journal, Good Housekeeping, and eventually Cosmopolitan became cultural institutions. By the mid-20th century, some of these magazines had circulations in the millions. Think about that. Millions of women receiving the same messages, month after month, year after year, generation after generation. That kind of reach doesn't just influence culture, it creates culture. And for many women, magazines became unofficial instruction manuals for what womanhood was supposed to look like. I cannot tell you how many damn quizzes I took in my early years while being conditioned to look, act, and talk for the male gaze. And I'm sure that for my other fellow women of a certain age, you can really identify with that. How many Cosmo quizzes did you take to learn how to get your man, right? To apply your lipstick just right. Taking that quiz, I will never forget this one. I took a quiz that determined your personality based on what your used lipstick container looks like. No surprise, I was kind of told that I had OCD because my lipstick remained the shape of it remained the same throughout its use. And ironically enough, I hate to admit, it was kind of accurate. But anyway, before we start dragging these magazines too hard, because trust me, we are going to go there, we need to acknowledge something important. Not everything about women's magazines was harmful. In fact, for many women, these publications opened doors. They provided access to information that women often weren't getting elsewhere. Some of the topics included career advice, financial literacy, reproductive health, sexual education, relationship dynamics, parenting support, mental health discussions, and workplace advancement. And that mattered, especially during times when women's voices were systematically excluded from mainstream institutions. And in the 1960s and 1970s, during second wave feminism, some magazines began covering equal pay, workplace discrimination, reproductive rights, sexual liberation, divorce rights, domestic violence, and gender inequality. And for many women, reading these articles in their kitchens, their dorm rooms, their break rooms, their bedrooms, these pieces sparked an awakening. Some women read those stories and thought, wait, maybe I'm not failing. Maybe the system was never built for me in the first place. And that realization changed lives. And we can't dismiss that. Media has the power to reinforce oppression, but it also has the power to create consciousness. Now let's talk about the shadow side, because empowerment and exploitation often lived on the exact same page. One page might say, how to ask for the promotion you deserve. And the next page, drop 2 dress sizes before beach season. One article might encourage independence. Another might quietly whisper, but don't get too powerful. That contradiction was not accidental. It was marketing. It was advertising. It was profit. The beauty industry, fashion industry, cosmetic surgery industry, anti-aging industry, and diet culture have all had deep financial relationships with women's media. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Industries make more money when women feel insecure. If you feel too old, too heavy, too wrinkled, too emotional, too ambitious, too plain, too sexual, not sexual enough, too loud, too opinionated, there's always something to sell you. A product, a procedure, a supplement, a cream, a makeover, a course, a lifestyle, a new version of yourself. And as a psychotherapist, I can tell you, these messages don't just stay on the page. They become internal narratives. Research has consistently shown that repeated exposure to idealized media imagery can negatively affect body image, self-esteem, mood, eating behaviors, anxiety levels, and relationship satisfaction. Young girls are especially vulnerable. Many begin comparing themselves long before they even understand what comparison is. And that is heartbreaking. Let's go even deeper. Historically, women's magazines didn't just promote beauty standards. They promoted very specific beauty standards. For decades, covers overwhelmingly centered thin bodies, youthful features, Eurocentric beauty, straight hair, able-bodied representation, and heteronormative relationships. And if you didn't fit that mold, you were often invisible. Or worse, treated like a problem to solve. Women of color, plus-size women, disabled women, queer women, older women, women who didn't conform. So many women grew up not seeing themselves reflected, myself being one of them. And psychologically, representation matters. When people never see themselves represented, they often begin questioning whether they are worthy of being seen at all. That's not just a media issue. That's a mental health issue. Here's what happens in the brain when women are repeatedly exposed to contradictory messaging, such as, love yourself, but fix your flaws. Be independent, but don't intimidate men. Own your sexuality, but don't be too much. Be ambitious, but stay likable. This creates psychological conflict. And over time, this can contribute to chronic self-monitoring, perfectionism, comparison addiction, anxiety, shame, people-pleasing, imposter syndrome, and emotional burnout. And eventually, many women stop asking, "Who am I?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become to be accepted?" That is where exploitation becomes deeply personal. Because now it's not just marketing, it's identity. Fast forward to today, the digital evolution. Print circulation has declined, but the messaging, it did not disappear. It evolved. Now, the magazine lives in your Instagram feed, your TikTok algorithm, Pinterest boards, YouTube recommendations, Facebook ads, and influencer content. Same pressure, different packaging. Now, instead of waiting for a monthly issue, women receive beauty messaging every hour, sometimes every minute. But here's the good news. Women are also fighting back. We are now starting to see body diversity, more mental health conversations, more creator-owned media, more feminist platforms. Hi. More honest conversations about aging. Again, hello. And more women refusing to perform perfection. And podcasts like this one, this is part of that revolution. This is actually one of the reasons why I show up every single week without putting a face on. I'm not performing. I'm sharing information. I'm trying to be inspiring. I'm trying to be empowering. But I don't want to put a full face of makeup on to do that, because I want to show you exactly who I am and the fact that I am proud of exactly who I am. Because I want every single woman watching this, every single woman listening to this, I want you to get to the place of empowerment that I feel, because it's beautiful. It is a wonderful place to stop performing. If I want to wear makeup, I'll wear makeup. I no longer feel that I have to look or act a certain way. So, what do we do with all of this? How do you reclaim your voice? Here are your power moves. First, and I have discussed this before, audit your media diet. Ask yourself, does this content inspire me or trigger self-doubt? Does it educate me or exploit my insecurities. Unfollow accordingly. Hell, if this podcast makes you feel like crap about yourself, don't listen to it. Don't watch it. And I won't be offended. If you want to send me a message and tell me about why, I am absolutely receptive to that. And if it's something that I have said or done, I will reflect on that and make changes accordingly. Next, notice your internal dialogue. When you catch yourself thinking, I need to look better, I'm falling behind, I'm not feminine enough, ask yourself, whose voice is this? Mine or conditioning? Next, diversify your influences. Follow women of different ages, races, body sizes, abilities, sexual identities, and life experiences. Expanding what you see expands what feels possible. And also, it makes you a more well-rounded person. Get out of that bubble. Next, spend money on growth, not shame. Instead of constantly investing in things designed to fix you, invest in therapy, coaching, education, skill building, travel, community, and creativity. And finally, create more than you consume. Write, speak, post, teach, record, lead, build, question, challenge. The world does not need more women shrinking. It needs more women creating. All right, ladies. This week's badass affirmation is, I refuse to be reduced to a product, a standard, or a stereotype. My worth was never up for sale. Say it again to yourself. Say it louder. Because for generations, women were taught that their value could be measured by their beauty, their youth, their weight, their compliance, their desirability, their silence. But your worth does not live on a cover. It does not live in an algorithm. It does not live in someone else's approval. It lives in your voice, your truth, your courage, your wisdom, your humanity. And every single time that you choose authenticity over performance, you rewrite the legacy. That, my queens, is revolutionary. Women's magazines were never entirely heroes or villains. They were mirrors. Sometimes they reflected women's power. Sometimes they reflected the systems trying to control it. Sometimes they opened doors. Sometimes they reinforced cages. But here's the most powerful truth of all. You are no longer required to consume stories that make you smaller. You get to decide what messages live in your mind. You get to decide what standards you reject. You get to decide what kind of woman you become. And most importantly, you get to become the editor of your own story. And trust me, queens, your story deserves one hell of a better narrative than not enough. All right, my friends. If today's episode hit home, share it with another woman who needs this reminder. Screenshot this episode, tag me on social media, come over to our Facebook group and tell me, what messages are you choosing to unlearn? And of course, Subscribe to the Hint Hive Amplifying Women's Voices. Leave a review. And come join our growing community of women who are done shrinking, done apologizing, and done letting outdated systems define their worth. Until next time, keep your crown on, keep your voice loud, and keep creating a life that makes patriarchy deeply uncomfortable.